Collectors will gather for TIFAF in New York, which brings together art and antiques from around the world. One prized item up for sale is a 500-year-old map. It is the most expensive map ever offered on the open market, and it could be yours for $10 million. Bloomberg Pursuit's James Tarmy got a first look at the map and joins us now. First, did I get the pronunciation right of the art fair?
TIFAF, yeah,
TIFAF,
for sure.
Very good. Describe this map and how it was found. I mean, this was in obscurity for a long time and really just discovered rather recently.
It was sitting rolled up in a castle in Switzerland for centuries. And I mean, people knew what it was, sort of, but it really only kind of sold for the first time in the 80s. The Library of Congress, when it became aware of it, tried to purchase it, failed, and then this English collector had it for around 40 years, and now this is the first time that it's actually ever really come onto the open market.
Okay, so what does it depict?
So it depicts the known world as it was known in 1531. So it's on vellum, so it's on 5 or 6 goat skins, and that's actually why the color is still so vivid, because it was actually inked in and stayed there. And so a lot of what it depicts is, I mean, Africa is fairly faithful. Europe, as you can imagine, is also fairly faithful because this was done by a cartographer in Italy. But the eastern seaboard had really only been explored 10 years before. So they sort of imagine the eastern seaboard as being this kind of narrow sliver of land on the other side of which was the Pacific Ocean. So there's a kind of smiling man in a turban around 2 miles inland from North Carolina. But it's really fascinating to see these people's ideas of what the world was like.
We'll talk about who may be interested in buying this map in a moment, but going back those many hundreds of years, who would have owned something like this? Who was buying cartography like this back then?
Kings. You know, a lot of the time the cartography that we actually see that survived is not only used for exploration and actual navigation, but also for treaties and for negotiation between various heads of state as they tried to kind of figure out what belonged to whom.
It's a big thing. I mean, this physically is a large object. What, you mentioned the vellum. What does it look like? Is it something that you could spend a lot of time studying?
Yeah, you absolutely can. It's over 6 feet long, over 3.5 feet high. It's put in this archival frame, but it kind of meant to float, but really it's actually designed to be set on a table so that people can walk around and look at it. It's not actually intended as decoration. So there's kind of lettering and fonts that go in multiple directions, and gorgeous illustration, really stunning colors. There's liquid gold that's been painted all over it. It's really beautiful. You
mentioned that in the past the Library of Congress has tried to buy it. What do we know, broadly speaking, of who or what institutions might be interested in owning this? There, I imagine, are people who collect maps in specific.
Yeah, very, very wealthy people. Yes. As Daniel Crouch, the man who is actually selling this, a rare book dealer who has locations in New York and London, said to me, when you get to 7 figures, the air gets pretty thin. But, you know, there are definitely institutions who would like to purchase it with funds that they raise from other people. You know, the Library of Congress actually bought the other most expensive map in the world, which is the Waldseemüller map, which is the first map that actually shows America, or the words America. And they bought that in 2003 for $10 million, but it was never on the open market.